had a tower of diaries where I'd put every training session. So I spent hour after hour after hour in my study digesting all my training sessions, coding them, putting them into groups. I visited, and I didn't realize this until I wrote it down, 2 CEOs, 3 owners of football clubs, because I wanted to see a different perspective. And there was just a really good feeling that you think, now we can do this, even though we were still a long way behind.
The changes from now until when I first had him 12 years ago was incredible. We want that winning mentality. Having that team who are all on the same page, who want to pull in the right direction, who might not be as talented as your opposition, I'll take that all day over talent, 100%.
How quickly does your brain start saying to you, blimey, I hope you can carry this job. This is big. The stadium's big. The expectation's big. These fans have been through the mill the last few years.
Straight away. Yeah. There's no real celebration or honeymoon period in my head. It's almost like, right, what are we going to do? Straight away. And then all the work you've done previously, going back to that, all the preparation I've done was for that moment. Right, I know what I'm going to do because it's all planned. It's all prepared.
So what was the first thing you did?
Well, the first thing you got to do is get the players with you.
What would you have wanted them to say?
Well, really, it's how they perceive me. So if they perceive me as, training's going to be hard, training's going to be intense, training's going to be detailed, training's going to be all towards our next game. We're going to have a clear philosophy. There'll be no hiding places. It'll be physically demanding. You've got to prepare for training. You can't just stroll up and be indisciplined and not have slept well the night before. So I would have wanted all those messages to go out, but I can't force that. That's got to come from them. But I'd imagine they would have been some of the things, maybe with a couple of negatives in there as well.
Like what?
Well, I'm intense. I'm focused for the players' careers. I really want the players' careers to excel, but that can sometimes be seen as too demanding or too intense, or my body of work that existed was all in books. So I had a tower of diaries where I'd put every training session, recorded it, and that was it. That was my body of work. So if you had asked me a question on how do you deal with problem players, or how do you deal with this situation that occurs in your job, I wouldn't have been able to give you an answer.
Really?
Well, yeah, because it would have been in here, but it wouldn't have necessarily been something that I could refer to, or a body of work behind it. So I spent hour after hour after hour in my study digesting all my training sessions, coding them, putting them into groups. So now if you ask me to find a training session or how do you play against this type of team, I'd be able to find it straight away.
See, that reminds me of the story attributed to Jose Mourinho, where that when he left Barcelona before he went into coaching, he talks about that was the period where he collated what he called his Bible, his methodology that he was going to implement when he went into clubs. So what kind of categories did you include when you were starting to code these 12 years of experience?
Well, it started with the training sessions. So it started with the basics, in possession, out of possession, and it just grew legs. It just grew so many different bits off of it. And I was like, the more I started to enjoy the process and thought this is going to help me, the more intense it got. So I'd gone right through that, and then it branched into all the other areas of the job. So everything that comes with being a football manager. So dealing with players, dealing with the media, board level, supporters, all my philosophies around how I want to work. What am I going to do on Mondays, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday? Things that I'd had it all in here, but I didn't have anything to refer to. The brain can only take so much information. So I felt this it is my Bible now. It's something I refer to every day and use consistently.
And away from the football side, the tactical side, what did you want to learn about yourself and improve about yourself on a personal level, which helps you with your job?
Well, yeah, I mean, on a personal level, it was about improving my knowledge tactically. So I was, I'd played near enough one system, not through the whole of my management career, but majority. I wanted to be consistent with what I did. I wanted my players to understand what was required of them. So I thought, right, I have to go away and I have to try and watch people work. I have to try and improve my tactical understanding, my my delivery. So even breaking down half-time team talks, full-time team talks, everything that covers my job, I wanted to look in depth and then find a few strategies and things that would help me when I got back in. I was very fortunate enough to see a lot of teams work around the world. I think I worked it out earlier. I think it was about eight different clubs around the world that I went to see and learn. And, you know, that in terms of is like gold dust, because you very rarely get a chance to do that when you're working.
So when you go into these clubs, like, what do you look for? You know, like when you've been invited in as a visitor, that beyond seeing like the surface level of like a training session, what other kind of things are you looking for on those visits?
I think the first thing you're looking for is the culture of the place. So not so much the training sessions as such, because I think they're pretty much universal.
Yeah.
Everyone likes to think they're unique and different, but the reality is there are probably similar things going on. But the culture and everything behind the scenes is what you rarely get to see. So I remember going to see Saracens, being visited and to see Saracens Rugby Club, and the culture there. Now rugby is different to football, but immediately it was different. It was a different kind of feeling, very coach orientated, very hands-on. A lot of laptops around the training pitch. I remember one of the players leading, I hope they don't mind me saying this, but one of the players leading a team meeting and about the opposition. So he'd been watching the opposition, not the coaches, and he was telling the players what to expect. So some really eye-opening things that can only, again, would I take everything that I saw? No, because some things wouldn't relate to football, but there was a culture there that was hugely successful and very powerful.
What's next on your list of learnings?
I visited, and I didn't realise this until I wrote it down, 2 CEOs, 3 owners of football clubs, because I wanted to see a different perspective. I wanted to go to the owners to say, what do you like in a manager? What don't you like in a manager?
I like that.
And what surprised you from the answers you got then?
How deeply they thought about their appointments, how much the personality of the manager also played a hugely important part in their support or not support for the manager. It's a complex thing. I think, you know, that human relationship you have with someone. I think if they genuinely like you and think you're working hard for them, and they will give you a little bit longer.
So what about managing upwards? Because again, when we interviewed Frank Lampard on this, he spoke about just that importance of alignment, of not just thinking it's about managing the team downwards, it's about managing the decision makers above it. What kind of tips did these CEOs and club owners give you about how they like to be communicated with and the nature of that communication?
Well, yeah, there's a couple of interesting things that spring to mind. So one is honesty. So even if you make a complete mess, as long as you hold your hands up and take it and admit it,
right,
they won't hold it against you. Well, the guys that
I
spoke to,
they said they wouldn't.
They said they wouldn't, but they would respect that,
rather
than trying to hide it. And if you try and hide something anyway, they'll soon smell it out and know what's going on. So I thought that was a really important thing, because in football you're making so many decisions. You're not going to get every single one right.
Yeah. So what did you find that you were doing really well? Because I appreciate that the analysis was what you could do better, but I think a big part of this kind of analysis is also acknowledging you were doing things very successfully for a long period.
Yeah, I suppose from that side, I'm not so good at that. So I would, I think a lot of my training sessions, when I look back at them, are very good. So I was looking back at things and I think, I remember doing that about 10 years ago, because I had it all on film. So I was like, that was really good. And I haven't done that since. So I'm going to bring that one back out. You know, so you're rediscovering things that you'd forgotten. So I'd say majority of my training, I was pleased with what I was delivering. But it was a whole host of other things that go into the job that there were sort of blank spaces that I needed to fill.
Like what, for example?
Well, like I said earlier, you know, if you said to me, well, what was your philosophy at half time? How do you, and I'd be like, well, I just help my players. But how do you help your players? And do you have different ways of talking with your players? Are you going to do it in ones and twos? Are you going to do it in units? Are you going to do it all 11? Where are you going to do it? That sounds obvious, but so it was analysing, breaking that down, things that I hadn't done at that level before. I wanted to make sure that I had strategies and things that I could strategically bring out when I needed them.
So give us an example then of what you would do now differently at half time than what you maybe would have done before this kind of introspection?
Well, the first thing I did at Newcastle, and you just reminded me, is I set up a...
Here's the truth, okay? High performers don't do more. They just work smarter. It's a myth I want to debunk, that high performance means chasing hacks, squeezing it in, working harder than everybody else. It's not true. The best performers just simplify. They master the fundamentals. We call it world-class basics on high performance. And in many ways, I've learned this through trial and error, but also through the conversations that we've had on this show. And one area you need to get the basics right is your nutrition. And that's where Vitals comes in. This is nutrition without the noise. 2 capsules, 6 seconds, 0 effort. And this has all the essential nutrients, vitamins, minerals, and healthy fats that you need, designed to power your sleep, your energy, your focus, your recovery. No mixing, no messing, no nonsense. Everything you need in the right dose. So why don't you strip your health routine back and just focus on what matters? Head to Heights.com/Jake or enter the code HP20 at checkout for 20% off your first order.
Different area. So the changing room is obviously the changing room. You'd expect most talks to be done in the changing room, but I almost wanted that to be the player space. So there wasn't a room. We created a room. So we knocked down a few walls and built a room next to the changing room. And when I do my halftime team talk, I take the lads in there. And in there's a couple of tactics board and a TV. And it's a much more, it's a separate space. So you try and get the lads' attention and their focus, rather than their fiddling around with strappings and things in around their area, which they would normally do.
And where did you learn that from?
I didn't actually. That was just an idea that came to me.
Is that right?
Yeah.
So then how do you work out, because obviously you had a year out of the game, right? So there's a million ideas coming all the time. How did you decide which ideas stuck and which ones were kind of discarded along the journey?
Well, I think you're right. And you don't want to, I didn't want to change everything, because a lot of what I'd done had worked over a long period of time. So it was a case of really looking at, as I said, a lot of training sessions that I did, I loved, and looking back, there was a lot that I'd forgotten that I wanted to bring back in. So you've got to be very careful that you don't throw out the good stuff and bring in stuff that you're not so sure about. And also, it's got to be you. It's got to be coming from your ideas and your method.
What did you find here that gave you an idea as to why things were a struggle?
So when I arrived, I wanted to focus on the positive. The last thing I wanted to do is come here and go anything negative.
Yeah. So what did you find then?
So I found a really, really hard-working group of players that wanted to do really, really well. A group of players that wanted to be coached. It was like, how can you make me better? What can you do for me in my career? I'm sort of an open book. And a lot of the players were like that. And that gave us a great start point to then bring our work, bring our method, and try and improve the team.
Yeah.
It was a case of get to know the players, get to know the family behind the player. I wanted to know everything about them, a little bit about their history as to how they've ended up here, and then how I could help them.
And is it true, Eddie? I heard this story about you, so you can either confirm or deny it, that one of the things that you did was find out some of the detail about partners' names, birthdays, things like that, so you could just add to that personal touch of reminding them that it's your partner's birthday today, happy birthday. And was that part of that one-on-one period? Yeah,
it's something that, I think you can see the player train, you can see the player on match day, but then behind it, if you don't know anything about them, and you're having a conversation with them, you don't know whether they have children or not. I don't think that's a conversation that's going to last long. Yeah. And I think the player will very quickly think you're not really interested in me. Obviously I'm in charge of the team, and I want the team to do really, really well.
Yeah.
But I think the best way for the team to do really, really well is for the individual to excel. And if I can try and improve those 25 players, each individually, and really invest in them, then I think the team and the club will never look back.
What percentage do you think you can affect the team's performance?
That is a tough one, Damian, but I'm going to say a little bit more than that.
Okay.
Just because you've given me a number. So I'll go 30. I really don't know, but I do believe, and it's not just me, by the way. I'm not just saying I'm the only one that can affect. I'm saying my coaching team, sports science team, physio team, everyone connected with the club can have an impact on the players, kit men. The people that are there having contact with the players, I think, can help shape a mindset and a mood and a feeling that can linger beyond the day. So I think we have to be very mindful of that when we're dealing with the players.
And despite the period of meeting the players and doing all the right things, was there a moment before the end of the season where you had the fear that relegation was going to come to this football club and you were going to be part of that?
Yeah, I think it was always there.
Yeah.
There was no escaping it, especially when we first went in. We had some, the results didn't come immediately. So it was...
Did that surprise you?
No, it didn't surprise me because I knew how difficult the Premier League is, and nothing surprises me with how hard this league is. And things can happen, like against Norwich. We had a man sent off very early in the game, as you'll know, against Norwich, and we ended up drawing the game, and I was really proud of the effort. But that was a game that was sort of built up internally and externally as that we had to win to stay up. So we had some early knocks. But then just momentum, and the win against Leeds was absolutely key for us. We then had a 2-week break, and then you could feel the group believed.
Let's talk about a couple of bits there then. The first one is the Norwich draw. When the whole world said if Newcastle don't win this, that's them done. What did you say to the players after that?
I was really, really pleased. Really, we played with 10 men for a long, long time in the game. I think we took the lead, and Norwich equalised quite late on. But the effort that the players left on that pitch.
But did you address the fear they would have then had, like everyone said we had to win this and we didn't? No,
because I think, for me, as long as I see a team give everything on the pitch, the result you can never guarantee. But what you need to do is I always say to the lads here that if the supporters clap you off, that's good enough, because if they're clapping you off, they've seen you've given everything. The supporters here won't take or tolerate anything less. So if they're clapping against Norwich to a man, the supporters stood up and went, "No, I've seen the players give everything." And I knew if we could consistently do that, we'd be fine. Now, don't get me wrong, there comes a time when you need the results to match that. But I felt really, really pleased after that, although we obviously didn't get the points we needed.
And then after the international break, when you felt a momentum shift, yeah?
Well, yeah, we won the game going into the international break, and then we took the lads away, and it was just a really good feeling that you think, now we can do this, even though we were still a long way behind.
Let's talk about when you first arrived then. Okay. You came in January, and it was like, let's be totally frank, it was touch and go whether this club was going to get relegated at that point.
Of course, yeah.
Then there was this incredible, felt like this shift, didn't it? And we spoke with Eddie about it on this podcast, and he just talked about this incredible belief that washed over the city. Can you give us your sort of emotional recollection of that period when this club was saved as a Premier League football club?
We went on a crazy run, and that belief came from the manager and the players that were signed in January, the right characters, which is the most important thing in a team. You need to have the right characters in the squad.
So tell us more about that. Go on.
Yeah, so for me, I'm a big believer in that. You need to have the right characters who are on the same page to pull in one direction, and the manager's been a big believer in that. The way he wants the club to be run, the way he wants to set his teams up, and you need to have a good dressing room. And
break that down for us, Kieran. What is the right character? What does that mean?
How are people going to handle themselves when they're not in the squad, when they're not playing?
And what about Eddie? Let's go right from when you first spoke to him.
Yeah.
What did he say to you to sell this football club?
Do you know what? He didn't have to say anything to him. I'm not just saying that. He didn't say anything to me to sell it to me. It was just more... when he came out to me, he actually came out to Madrid to watch us train. Probably October time, I think, before he even found out he was going to get this job. And I was having a few words with him, trying to plant the seed. If you ever get a job in England again, I'll come back. And he took over Newcastle. But yeah, the changes from now until when I first had him 12 years ago was incredible. Incredible change. That. Just in the sense of
So 2025 is well underway, and I bet a lot of you like me have already started to make plans on how this can be the very best year yet. And for me, making it a great year revolves around some investment, but actually investing in myself physically and mentally. So the physical investment has been a sauna that I've just had installed at home, and already I'm absolutely loving it. But the mental investment is making sure that I take time to go travelling with my kids, Flo and Seb and Harriet, my wife, on those kind of memory-making holidays that last a lifetime. But obviously both of those goals centre around needing finance The good news is, though, that's where our new partner, XTB, comes in. They're dedicated to empowering you on your investment journey, and that's regardless of whether your horizon is short or long term. You can maybe buy stocks and ETFs commission free. You can invest passively with investment plans, open an ISA account, earn up to 4.75% interest on uninvested funds, and loads more. And the good news is it's so easy using their app. So just download the XTB app today or click the link in the description below to start making your money work for you in 2025.
Back then we would score 4 but would concede 2-3 goals, and I think it was early years of his management when he was at Burnley, and then he went back to Bournemouth, and then I think for me, looking at the manager is when he took the time out. I think when he had to reflect and go and look at how other teams work, how they operate, and you look at him now, he's flying as a manager, flying. He's got players that he trusts. He has good leaders in the dressing room who can handle any situation. If it doesn't need to go to him, we can take that indoors. We can deal with it. And it's just about the trust and the connection that we have.
What are those kind of standards then that you insist on for a good dressing room that you say, these are non-negotiable, we need to have these kind of behaviours firmly understood?
I think it's, the things that you just mentioned, being on time, for if it's pre-act or if it's in the mornings for training. There's just the way, you train ultimately, there's no excuses not to train, to give your best in training. Obviously, players have off days or going through certain things or what, but I think it's just the demands of everyone, and I think that's what we've got here. We demand a lot in training. Not just myself, all the players. And I think that's grown throughout this season. And positivity as well is key. You need to have a positive group, no negativity, or it can be like a domino effect then.
So, the idea that Eddie told us when we sat down about it, like when you win a game, you'll pose for that photo when that gets put up then around the training ground.
Yeah.
Like, did you guys come up with that as a leadership group, or was that the manager? And what's your view on that kind of?
Yeah. So I think it was I can't remember when it started, to be honest with you. But I think it's not rubbing it in people's faces or anything like that. We just look at it as motivation, really, because we walk down the hall to the dining room or whatever, and we see that winning feeling, and we want that winning mentality. So, yeah, my feeling on it is proud moments of things that we've had to overcome throughout when we signed in January till now, and the progress that we've taken. So I don't want people from the outside to think it's being disrespectful if we are, celebrating for like 5 seconds. It's just memories. And I think it's important to know the memories that we've had when we've been winning, because when you're losing, it's quick to forget. You need to, have that winning mindset.
How much has getting through that relegation period with a lot of the same players that are still involved now?
Yeah, it's massive. It's massive, and it's gone a lot faster than what I thought. Of course it has. But again, I think the players deserve huge credit, and the players that have come in, the way they've adapted to the manager's methods, because he demands a lot in training, on and off the pitch. So everyone deserves huge credit. It's certainly the players that was there before the takeover, because I think that doesn't get spoken about enough. The players that was there, they've done incredible, and obviously that comes from coaching as well. But yeah, it's crazy. I didn't think we would be pushing this high up in the table so soon.
And look, you've played at all different levels in more than one country. This isn't a question about talent. This is a question about mentality and self-belief and spirit. Where does the current Newcastle dressing room sit in that respect compared to all the other dressing rooms you've been in?
Yeah, definitely up there. Certainly, because what they've had to overcome before the takeover, when there was rock bottom, I think, or 19th on about 7 points, and then going on, staying up, and then kicking on again to be third in the league, to overcome the hurdles that we have overcome. The people from the outside, they wouldn't be able to keep up the pace, still fall off, etc., etc. And mentally, the way they've overcome all those hurdles is brilliant, and testament to them as well.
That idea of a great team spirit seems to be significant. If you had to give me a figure for how significant you think it is as a competitive advantage compared to talent, what sort of number would you offer?
I think it's bigger than talent. I think having that team who are all on the same page, who want to pull in the right direction, who might not be as talented as your opposition, I'll take that all day over talent, 100%, because it's so powerful. You know, you look at us this season, we've competed, gone toe-to-toe with Man City at home, which is a thrilling game. We've gone toe-to-toe with everyone in the league, and, you know, I'll take that all day. The togetherness, 100%.
Can we talk about the football club as a whole?
Yeah.
It humbles a player, doesn't it? The size,
does.
the scale and the passion up here for football.
It does, and when people have said that to me in the past, or when I've played there against Newcastle, I don't think you realise how big the club is when you play for them. The support all around the city. When people say it's a football city, it certainly is. Yeah, even when I'm taking my kids to school, or yeah, you know, they say to you, "Oh, what a good result the other day," and next week you're speaking to them for half an hour, you know, and that's how passionate they are, and it's good. And you know, they remind you of the old times as well, when they weren't going through a good moment, so they're all just proud.
Do you remember the moment when you signed, when you really realised the power of the fans here? Because I think there's very few football clubs in the UK. You can probably name 3 or 4, maybe 5, where the fans understand their responsibility, where they realise that they're standing on the terrace representing the previous generations, and they're going to hand it down to the next generation, and they have a genuine part to play. When did you realise the power of the fans here and get that real sense of what they do for this club?
Well, on my first game against Cambridge, it was a sellout, and like, no disrespect to Cambridge, but you don't see that in the Premier League. A Premier League side selling out the stadiums on a Wednesday night or whenever it was. But the fans have been incredible since I've been there. You know, you see the big banners, they have the war flags, and the atmospheres in there it's incredible. And I can always go back to the one against Arsenal at home last year, when it was up there, the best atmosphere I've been involved in, for sure.
So, you know, it's a long time since these fans have lifted a trophy.
Yeah.
For a long time, there was an owner of this football club who didn't have their best interests at heart, and almost seemed from the outside like he didn't realise the value of the fans here. And actually, at the same time that you've arrived here, they're finally getting the rewards for all the years that they carried on spending their money, carried on supporting, carried on cheering, carried on having their hearts broken. And I don't think we can underestimate, actually, that they are genuinely adding to the success that this football club is experiencing at the moment.
No, definitely. And they've had to go through tough times, of course they have, but now it's a new journey. Now they can dare to dream, you know. There's a first cup final in so long. That's just the start, you know. That's just a stepping stone of where this club wants to go, where it deserves to be. And the fans are so valuable, you know. Throughout this season, when we've been going through a tough moment where we've needed them, they've always been there. They've always reacted to the situation. We go 1-0 down or we're on top, and we certainly value them so highly, and long may that continue, of course. And yeah.
Have you allowed yourself to think about Champions League football? You must have started to dream.
Yeah, I'd be silly here to say I've not. I don't want to lie to you. But we shouldn't be scared to say we want to play Champions League football. I know the managers or people have been we'll take it a game at a time. I understand that, but you know, players like myself want to play Champions League football again. I've had the taste of it for a good number of years, and if we brought that back here, I dare to think what it would be like, this city, this club in the Champions League.
Do you think that the current squad could deliver on that stage?
Yeah, I think we could. I think, like I said before, I'm a big believer in as a group. If we're on the same page and we're pulling in the same direction, that'll take you so far, and it's so powerful. So, listen, I think it'll be a great occasion for the lads to be playing Champions League football.
Attitude over ability, right?
Definitely.
And just before we move on to the quick fire and whatever you want to do, the poster out, or the banner out there, we're not here to be popular.
Yeah, it's massive.
We're here to compete. What does that say to you?
That just says everything about the club's supporters, you know. Yeah, I just think they've woke a sleeping giant, if I'm honest with you now. I think you look at Villa, you look at Brighton, who are pushing. Of course, like, other teams might have not have done as well this season, but you got to give credit to, I think, us, Villa, Brighton, and it's so competitive, this league. There's no easy game in this league. You got to respect your opposition, and yeah, you're seeing teams now push for the top 4, top 5 now.